Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report today. It's Thursday, February 21st, 2013. My website is ggnonline.com, and I just put a poll up there you can check out. It's been a while since I had a poll. Also on YouTube, my channels are ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. So I'm going to continue here. Al-Qaeda's top recruiting tool is the CIA. After being tortured by American interrogators, a Libyan freedom fighter, that's basically a foreign hired terrorist, mercenary, became a top terror leader. Oh, not surprised, right? Because this is the same situation in Afghanistan and in Mali, where you had a top Al-Qaeda leader or whatever that was working for the CIA and trained by them to fight in Afghanistan, and now he's in Mali. And he's actually the one that was in Algeria that was leading up the attack on that oil refinery. It was a CIA operation. And what did the Algerian government do? They just shot away. And they actually killed like half of the hostages. So it goes on here, and he says he draws a direct line, this individual, between the recruitment by Al-Qaeda and the suffering endured at the hands of American interrogators using techniques similar to those portrayed in the movie Zero Dark 30. But that's what they're doing. They're actually snatching and grabbing people in these renditions. In Mideastern countries, they'll fly him into Germany, and then they'll fly him into the UK, whatever, and they'll just torture him, send them back. They just get snatched off the street. I just read an article about that the other day. So you can go in there and check it out. Links will be, or should be, posted in YouTube's video description. It goes through that guy's personal experiences with being tortured and renditions and stuff like that. Saudi Arabia and Qatar backed Washington's global terror nets as a report. It indicates that Saudi Arabia, along with Qatar, has been directly assisting militias belonging to the U.S.-led terror network operating across the globe. They've been known as a major provider of militants and monetary aid to extremists in Mali, Libya, and also the militants fighting the Syrian government. A report by France 24 TV channel under the title "Is Qatar Fueling the Crisis in Northern Mali?" sheds light on the Saudi and Qatari support for terrorism. It says the mayor of the northern Malian city of Gao says the French government, which is leading the war in the West African country, knows perfectly well, in quotes, who is supporting these terrorists. Qatar is an established network of institutions it funds in Mali, including madrasas, or religious schools, charities that have been funding from the 1980s. It's like Syria, Mali has huge oil and gas potential. And it says, and it needs help developing its infrastructure. Then moving on to Iran, we have 99% of Americans consider Iran nukes a threat. I could just go on a limb and say that this is a bullshit poll, but it says North Korean nuclear program also widely perceived as critical danger. Poll finds Republicans fear Islamism more than Democrats. Well, most Republicans are Zionists, and this whole Islamophobia is created by Zionists, so it's a good divide and conquer strategy. So it says here that the majority of Americans view Iran's nuclear program as a critical threat alongside North Korea's nuclear program and international terrorism. That's, if actually a huge majority of Americans actually gave a shit, then they might actually take 2 seconds away from their stupid television, whatever programs they're watching, and figure out that they're actually supporting these international terrorism, and they're going around overthrowing sovereign countries and killing people, unarmed civilians and stuff like that. And they're just creating an environment where people hate us, like in Pakistan, Afghanistan. These people that get scooped up that have nothing to do with terrorism are tortured until they just admit that they're terrorists, or that they're going to carry out some kind of plot. Like in the United States, they do that all the time. FBI sting plots, whatever. And also, if they could take maybe 10, 15 minutes, they can find out very, very fast if they just look at history. When was the last time that North Korea attacked anybody? When was the last time Iran attacked anybody? And when was the last time the United States attacked directly or indirectly another country? Now, I think the American people need to realize that they're actually the international terrorists going around terrorizing other countries. It's sad to say that, because I didn't think like that, prior to say 2008. But it's as clear as day now. It's hard. You can't really just undo that. Knowing that. UN report: Iran is diverting uranium for peaceful purposes, but the U.S. still stubbornly insists that Iran stop enriching enriching uranium to 20% despite proving good on its promises. The UN report due this week is expected to detail a decrease in the growth of Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium because it's diverting much of the material to make its fuel, as it's promised, Reuters reports. On Monday, Netanyahu of Israel issued another stern warning of Iran's determination to become a nuclear state, insisting that a robust, credible military threat is the only thing that can stop it. Then we have report says that nuclear Iran would not spark Mideast arms race. A new report from the Center for New American Security says the conventional wisdom about how a nuclear Iran would spark a dangerous nuclear arms race in the Middle East is probably wrong. But it goes on here and says a few scare stories Washington is able to conjure up about some fictional future nuclear Iran is this arms race script. This scare story is currently being employed to justify military buildups in the Middle East, I think in Africa too, subservience to Israel's supposed security interests, and cruel collective punishment on the Iranian people in the form of harsh economic sanctions. Then next up we have UK to leave Afghanistan via Uzbekistan. So finally, right? We're leaving Afghanistan. It was something like a first month where there was no U.S. casualties. We have this. UK government has clinched a deal with Uzbekistan to use the country as a route for returning £4 billion in military equipment from Afghanistan in the wake of the gradual pullout of troops in the country. Now, why is this semi-important? Because we have this article from last August, really almost last September, is U.S. military base in Uzbekistan to counter Russia in Central Asia. Washington's plans to deploy a military base on Uzbekistan's territory could entail negative political and economic consequences for Moscow, a Russian military expert told Interfax. According to recent media reports, Washington launched negotiations with Uzbekistan about a so-called operative reaction center in the country, which could accommodate warehouses storing weapons and military hardware following the U.S. forces' withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2014. Such a scenario is quite probable, says this Sazin. A decision on this matter was most likely adopted before basically the Uzbekistan's president turned his back on Russia once again. Too many overseas visitors travel there. But it goes on here and it says that the deployment of such an American facility, no matter what they call it, will entail negative political consequences for Russia and the Central Asian region. And remember this, he said, although Americans claim that they are fighting against the Taliban in Afghanistan today, it will be them who, by deploying their facility in Uzbekistan, will lead Taliban members there. So, it says that the Taliban will inevitably take advantage of the American presence in Uzbekistan to fuel anti-American sentiment, and get them over on their side. They say it's more profitable for the U.S. to store weapons withdrawn from Afghanistan nearby than to drag them all the way back to America. Barack Obama to receive Israel's Presidential Medal of Distinction. A president who is often criticized over Israel policy set to be honored during March visit to the Middle East. So Obama will receive one of Israel's most prestigious honors for his unique and significant contribution to strengthening the state of Israel and the security of its citizens. So that's real nice. Then we have this article, I don't know if you remember, from a few days ago. Israelis see their ownership of United States government in jeopardy. So the Jewish, remember this, it says here, Chuck Hagel saying, he famously said the Jewish lobby intimidates a lot of people up here. I'm not an Israeli senator, I'm a U.S. senator. So this Alan Hart said U.S. hostility towards Iran is only one example of self-destructive policy imposed on America by Israel. In fact, the whole war on terror, in reality, is a war on Islam, is an Israeli fabrication. Then we have Dianne Feinstein, Lindsey Graham to be honored for civility in partisan-prone D.C. Civility, that's interesting, because wasn't Lindsey Graham one of those people, besides John McCain, that was holding up the process nomination for Chuck Hagel? So Feinstein and Graham are being honored for displaying civility in politics, a rare Washington commodity they'll need plenty of in the coming months as they champion divisive issues such as gun control and immigration. New York bill would force gun owners to buy at least $1 million in insurance. The bill was introduced in the New York State Assembly. It says it would require state residents to acquire liability insurance as a condition for gun ownership, and an amount not less than $1 million specifically covering any damages resulting from any negligent or willful acts involving the use of such firearm. Any person who has not purchased insurance in compliance with the law within 30 days of its passing would be in violation of the law. Such an occurrence shall result in the immediate revocation of such owner's registration, license, and other privileges to own such firearm. The bill also states that if a gun is stolen, the legal owner of that gun is responsible for any damage incurred until a loss or theft is reported to the police department. And we have Florida Stadium to be renamed after a prison firm. So the CEO or GEO group's boss is Illuminus of Florida Atlantic. Whatever the hell that means. But it says here, 29,000-seat University Stadium in Boca Raton, Florida, will soon boast the name of a private prison company, a move that has critics shaking their heads. So it goes on here, is GEO Group is a company whose record is marred by human rights abuses, by lawsuits, by unnecessary deaths. It's like calling something Blackwater Stadium. It says here, though, the Florida Atlantic University's president says GEO is a wonderful company with strong ties to the school. NYPD and Microsoft create crime-fighting technology. It says here a city could make millions in business deal. So it goes on here, it says a 9/11 call comes in about a possible bomb in lower Manhattan. Alerts pops up on a computer screens, and the NYPD reads it. It says instantly showing officers an interactive map of the neighborhood, footage from nearby security cameras, whether there are high radiation levels, and whether any other threats have been made against the city. It says here that this scenario may seem like something out of a futuristic crime drama, but the technology is real. Developed in partnership between the nation's largest police department, who also has an actual department in Israel, that's right, their own little police department, NYPD in Israel, and Microsoft Corporation, and the latest version has been quietly in use for about a year. Quietly in use for about a year, so that's nice. This is just going to show you how engineered consent actually works. They're going to do it whether you agree to it or not, but you're just going to manufacture your consent. So you can say, oh, okay, well, I guess we better do it, right? Gotta catch the bad guys. Gotta give the good guys the tools to catch the bad guys. NYPD could make tens of millions of dollars under an unprecedented marketing deal that allows Microsoft to sell the system to other law enforcement agencies and civilian companies around the world. The city will get paid 30% cut, so that's real nice. You think taxpayers will see that? No. But if cops beat people up and kill them on an accident, quote accident, the taxpayers foot the bill for the big-ass lawsuit. Russia targets Americans amid Obama's gun control battle. It says here, Obama helped spur a run on firearms and ammunition by people looking to stock up before the proposed gun controls take effect, and the impact is being felt even in an unlikely place like Russia. So you go through here online, the gun supply clearinghouses shows scores out of stock, no back order, unavailable for certain types of munitions. We're just covering that. It says as overall demand for firearms and ammunition skyrockets, supplies are drying up in the United States, and these Russian ammunitions are basically filling the gap. Alcohol production in Russia drops 30% in a year. It says an increase in tax is being blamed for the drop in alcohol production in Russia. Some 30% last year. Some manufacturers have cut production as much as 80%. So it goes on here, and it says that the reason is basically up until 2012, the excise tax for alcohol had been increased by 10% every year, and now it's being increased by 30%. Bolivia nationalizes Spanish company. So Evo Morales, the president of Spain, has nationalized a Spanish company that operates the country's 3 main airports. So he's taken full operational control. It goes on here, Spanish companies run 3 airports since they were privatized in 1997. It was due to continue to 2025. It goes on here, it says the Bolivian leader said the Spanish investors did not make promised investments and maximize profits at Bolivia's expense. The move was the 3rd nationalization that affected Spanish companies in Bolivia in 10 months. Spain's foreign ministry was angry and said they can reconsider the whole relations with Bolivia in view of this unfriendly act. And then in Spain, where they've actually had these economic suicides, like 4 in the last week, another self-immolation, and you have what? In hard-hit Spain, bartering becomes means of getting by. So this is just like Greece and in Spain as well, bartering or die. It's been described as the new sharing economy developed here since the economic crisis or wealth consolidation operation hit. And just think, like in Spain where they were dumpster diving, they had to put locks on the dumpster. So they'll do anything that they can to stop them, like growing, gardens and stuff like that. This article, if they really want to do justice for the readers, they can actually talk about the Spanish Revolution, right, and the anarchists, right, how they had their own sharing economy. Thank you.